So this video is going to be going deep into understanding the KDP metrics that I mentioned in the end of the last video. So the metrics, why is this important? Well, being able to understand the metrics in the Amazon Ads console gives you full control. It allows you to understand exactly what is going wrong, what's going right, so you can optimize your ads accordingly to make them as profitable as possible. So when I refer to metrics, what metrics am I talking about? So in the advertising console, you're able to select a number of different metrics using this columns drop-down button here. And the metrics I'm talking about are the ones you can see here. I recommend selecting these metrics that you can see on the screen: impressions, clicks, click-through rate, spend, cost per click, orders, sales, and ACOS. It entirely depends. It's up to you what metrics you want to use. These are the ones that I use and that I'm going to teach you how to read into them and what they all mean. So I'd recommend these, but ultimately it is entirely up to you. So the first metric we're going to go through is impressions, and this is essentially the number of time your ad is seen by someone, not clicked, just seen on an Amazon results page. Now, as you can imagine, a low number of impressions therefore means that people just physically aren't seeing your book. And the reason why people might not be seeing your book is either because your bid is far too low, you're not winning enough bids for your book to be shown and therefore have an impression, or your keyword or product target just doesn't get searched. If you're targeting a super niche keyword that literally nobody searches on Amazon, of course, nobody's going to see it and you're not going to get an impression. So impressions are a good way of just measuring how many people are seeing your books, if your bids are right, and also if your keyword or product targeting is relevant. You then have clicks, very straightforward, the number of times your ad is clicked by someone. You then have CTR, which stands for click-through rate, and that is the percentage of times your ad is clicked when it is seen by someone. So click-through rate, however many impressions you have, and then how many clicks came back off those impressions represented as a percentage. So a low click-through rate basically means people are seeing your book, but they aren't clicking it, i.e. it might be a bad target and not relevant to the customers who are seeing it. On the flip side, high click-through rate basically means there's a high percentage of people who are seeing your book that are actually clicking into it. And a high click-through rate is generally quite subjective. It would change depending on the niche, depending on the book. But anything towards 1%, in my opinion, with Amazon ads from my experience, is quite a good click-through rate. Spend then, very straightforward, how much you have spent on the ad. You then have cost per click. So on average, how much each click has cost you. So you can see here, we've spent £34.95 in this ad campaign. We've got 129 clicks, which means it's cost us 27 pence on average per click, because this divided by this is this. So if your spend is really high, your cost per click can give you an idea of why that is. So if you have a super high cost per click, say something like £1, that's a very high cost per click and could be explaining why your ad spend is really high. When you think you're maybe making £2, £2.50 per royalties, if you're having only 2 clicks before your ad becomes unprofitable, that's a really high cost per click. So these ones you can see here are actually generally very low. 27 pence is very low for a cost per click. But again, high and low cost per click values entirely depends on your niche, how expensive these keywords and products you're targeting against are, based on how much demand there is to rank for those keywords or product targets. You then have orders, so the number of orders that ad has led to. So this ad set here has been seen by 39,000 people, it spent £34, and it's received 15 orders from that ad. And it's just worth bearing in mind here that this orders is only the orders you get from the ad. It doesn't factor in organic sales. The sales number, this is then the sales revenue generated from those orders. And it's worth bearing in mind this is a sales number and not a royalty number. So if your book is £6.99 and you make £2 royalties per book sale, it's going to be the £6.99 that goes into this number. It's not a royalties number, it's your sales number. And then finally, you have probably the most important metric of them all, which is the advertising cost of sale, or we shorten it to ACOS. And this basically means what percentage of the sales number that you've made back, so what percentage of this £104 was spent on advertising. So of this £104, what percentage does this £34 make up? And it's 33.33%. And with that in mind then, your ACOS is the easiest way of tracking how profitable your ad campaign or your target is. And you can very easily calculate your break-even ACOS for your book. So I massively recommend you do this for every single book you're advertising. As a very simple formula, you just take the royalty amount, so £2, divided by the sale price of the book, which is £6.99, gives you a break-even ACOS of 28.6%. And what this basically means then now, if this ACOS number is higher than 28.6%, the ad is quote-unquote unprofitable. Obviously, you have to factor in the overall profitability with organic sales too, but you can't see that in the Amazon Ads console. So we're just talking here about Amazon ad campaign profitability. So this one here would be a profitable ad, so with this one here, but these two would be unprofitable. So once you've calculated the break-even ACOS for each of your books, it's super easy just to see if a campaign or a keyword or a product target is actually performing at a profitable level or not. Is it higher or lower than this number? It is as simple as that. So I've added a KDP ads metric help sheet here to show you how each of these different metrics interact with each other and what they mean. So feel free to take a screenshot, use this, come back to it whenever you want, or take notes. And you can see here how they're all linked. So I have what we call the first level metrics, which is impressions, clicks, spend, and sales. And then the second level metrics, which is click-through rate, cost per click, and advertising cost of sale, which is made up of these first level metrics. So impressions and clicks determine your click-through rate, your clicks and your spend determine your cost per click, and your spend and your sales determine your ACoS. So you can actually start to see how all of these metrics are actually linked to one another. And then when it comes to optimizing ads, which we'll cover in full detail in another video in this course, you'll be able to understand why maybe if your ACoS is super high, you can look at all of these metrics and understand exactly why your ad is behaving unprofitably, because ultimately it's going to come down to lots of these different metrics and what they're all doing. You can start making some changes and hopefully bring this ACoS down. But like I say, that will be covered in full detail in another video in this course. So we're now going to move on to actually learning in depth about different types of ad campaigns. I'm going to be starting off with auto ads. So we're going to go into a deep dive into all things auto ads, how they work and how you can optimize them to make as much money as possible. So I'll see you in the next video.